Section 4 of a selection from the poetry of Saadi Shirazi, edited by Nathan Haskell Dole and Bell Walker. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Gulistan, or Rose Garden, Part 3. Story. A king handed over his son to a teacher, and said, "This is my son. Educate him as one of thine own sons." The preceptor spent some years in endeavouring to teach him without success, while his own sons were made perfect in learning and eloquence. The king took the preceptor to task, and said, "Thou hast acted contrary to thy agreement, and hast not been faithful to thy promise." He replied, "O king, education is the same, but capacities differ." Stanza. Silver and gold, 'tis true, in stones are found, yet not all stones the precious metals bear. Canopus shines to earth's most distant bound, but here gives leather, scented leather there. Story. I have heard of an old doctor who said to a pupil, "If the minds of the children of men were as much fixed on the giver of subsistence as they are on the subsistence itself, they would rise above the angels." Stanza. Thou wast by God then not forgotten when thou wast a seed, thy nature in suspense. He gave thee soul and reason, wisdom, ken, beauty and speech, reflection, judgment, sense. He and thy hand arrayed thy fingers 10, and thy arms fastened to thy shoulders. Whence canst thou then think, O thou most weak of men, he'd be unmindful of thy subsistence? Story. I saw the son of a rich man seated at the head of his father's sepulchre, and engaged in a dispute with the son of a poor man, and saying, "My father's sarcophagus is of stone, and the inscription coloured with a pavement of alabaster and turquoise bricks. What resemblance has it to that of thy father, which consists of a brick or two huddled together, with a few handfuls of dust sprinkled over it?" The son of the poor man heard him, and answered, "Peace, for before thy father can have moved himself under this heavy stone, my sire will have arrived in paradise. This is a saying of the prophet, the death of the poor is repose." Couplet. Doubtless the ass, on whom they do impose the lightest burden, also easiest goes. Stanza. The poor man, who the agony has borne of famine's fangs, treads lightly to the door of death, while one from blessings torn, from luxury and ease, will grieve the more to lose them. This is certain: happier he whom, like a captive, death from bonds sets free, than great men whom it hurries to captivity. Maxims on the duties of society. Maxim. Riches are for the sake of making life comfortable, not life for the sake of amassing riches. I asked a wise man, "Who is fortunate and who unfortunate?" He replied, "The fortunate is he who sowed and reaped, the unfortunate he who died and abandoned." Couplet. Not for that worthless one a prayer afford, who life in hoarding spent, ne'er spent his hoard. Maxim. Two men have laboured fruitlessly and exerted themselves to no purpose. One is the man who has gained wealth without enjoying it; the other he who has acquired knowledge, but has failed to practise it. Distichs. How much soe'er thou learn'st, 'tis all vain; who practised not, still ignorant remain. A quadruped, with volumes laden, is no whit the wiser or more sage for this. How can the witless animal discern if books be piled on it, or wood to burn? Maxim. Science is for the cultivation of religion, not for worldly enjoyments. Couplet. Who makes a gain of virtue, science, law, is one who garners up, then burns his store. Maxim. Three things lack permanency, uncombined with three other things: wealth without trading, learning without instruction, and empire without a strict administration of justice. Stanza. By courteous speech, politeness, gentleness, sometimes thou mayest direct the human will; anon by threats, for it oft profits less with sugar twice 100 cups to fill, than from one colocynth its bitters to distil. Maxim. To show pity to the bad is to oppress the good, and to pardon oppressors is to tyrannize over the oppressed. Couplet. When thou to base men giv'st encouragement, thou sharest their sins, since thou them aid hast lent. Maxim. No reliance can be placed on the friendship of princes, nor must we plume ourselves on the sweet voices of children, since that is changed by a caprice, and these by a single slumber. Couplet. On the mistress of 1,000 hearts do not thy love bestow, but if thou wilt, prepare eftsoons her friendship to forego. Maxim. Reveal not to a friend every secret that thou possessest. How knowest thou whether at some time he may not become an enemy? Nor inflict on thy enemy every injury that is in thy power; perchance he may some day become thy friend. Tell not the secret that thou wouldst have continue hidden to any person, though he may be worthy of confidence; for no one will be so careful of thy secret as thyself. Stanza. Better be silent than thy purpose tell to others, and enjoin them secrecy. O dolt! Keep back the water at the well, for the swollen stream to stop thou'lt vainly try. In private utter not a single word which thou in public wouldst regret were heard. Maxim. Let thy words between two foes be such that if they were to become friends thou wouldst not be ashamed. Distichs. Like fire is strife betwixt two enemies; the luckless mischief maker wood supplies; struck with confusion, and ashamed is he, if e'er the two belligerents agree. Can we in this aught rational discern, to light a fire which will ourselves first burn? Stanza. In talk with friends speak soft and low, lest thy bloodthirsty foeman thee should hear. A wall may front thee, true; but dost thou know if there be not behind a listening ear? Maxim. Whoever comes to an agreement with the enemies of his friends does so with the intention of injuring the latter. Couplet. Eschew that friend, if thou art wise, who consorts with thy enemies. Maxim. When, in transacting business, thou art in doubt, make choice of that side from which the least injury will result. Couplet. Reply not roughly to smooth language, nor contend with him who knocks at peace's door. Maxim. Anger that has no limit causes terror, and unseasonable kindness does away with respect. Be not so severe as to cause disgust, nor so lenient as to make people presume. Distichs. Sternness and gentleness are best combined; the leech both salves and scarifies, you find. The sage is not too rigorous, nor yet too mild, lest men their awe of him forget. He seeks not for himself too high a place, nor will himself too suddenly abase. Distichs. Once to his sire a shepherd said, O sage, teach me one maxim worthy of thy age. Use gentleness, he said, yet not so much that the wolf be emboldened thee to clutch. Maxim. Two persons are the foes of a state and of religion: a king without clemency, and a religious man without learning. Couplet. Ne'er to that king may states allegiance own, who bows not humbly at the Almighty's throne. Maxim. When an enemy has tried every expedient in vain, he will pretend friendship, and then, by this pretext, execute designs which no enemy could have effected. Maxim. When thou knowest tidings that will pain the heart of any one, be silent, so that another may be the first to convey them. Couplet. O nightingale! Spring's tidings breathe; ill rumours to the owls bequeath. Maxim. Do not acquaint a king with the treason of any one, unless thou art assured that the disclosure will meet with his full approval, else thou art but labouring for thy own destruction. Couplet. Then, only then, to speak intend, when speaking can effect thy end. Maxim. He who gives advice to a conceited man is himself in need of counsel. Maxim. Be not caught by the artifice of a foe, nor purchase pride of a flatterer, for the one has set the snare of hypocrisy, and the other has opened the mouth of greediness. The fool is puffed up with flattery, like a corpse whose inflated heels appear plump. Stanza. Heed not the flatterer's fulsome talk, he from thee hopes some trifle to obtain. Thou wilt, shouldst thou his wishes balk, 200 times as much of censure gain. Maxim. Unless some one points out to an orator his defects, his discourse will never be amended. Couplet. To vaunt of one's own speaking is not meet, at fools' approval and one's own conceit. Maxim. Everyone thinks his own judgment perfect, and his own son beautiful. Verse. A Jew and Mussulman once so contended, that laughter seized me as their contest grew. The true believer thus his cause defended. Is this bond false? Then may I die a Jew. The Jew replied, By Moses' books I vow that 'tis true, or else a Mussulman am I. So from earth's face were wisdom's self to fly, not one could be amongst us found to allow that he judgment lacked, or himself stultify. Maxim. Whosoever does no good when he has the ability to do it, in the time of inability to aid others, will himself suffer distress. Couplet. Ill-starred indeed is he who injures men. Is fortune adverse, he is friendless then. Maxim. Affairs succeed by patience, and he that is hasty falleth headlong. Distichs. I've in the desert with these eyes beheld the hurrying pilgrims to the slow-stepped yield. The rapid courser in the rear remains, while the slow camel still its step maintains. Maxim. There is no better ornament for the ignorant than silence, and did he but know this, he would not be ignorant. Stanza. Hast thou not perfect excellence? 'Tis best to keep thy tongue in silence, for 'tis this which shames a man, as lightness does attest the nut is empty, nor of value is. Stanza. Once, in these words, a fool rebuked an ass. Go, thou who all thy life hast lived in vain. A sage said to him, Blockhead, why dost thou pass thy time in this? Gibes will be all thy gain. To learn of thee a brute no power has. Learn thou of brutes in silence to remain. Maxim. Whoso sits with bad men will not see aught good. Distichs. With demons did an angel take his seat, he'd learn but terror, treason, and deceit. Thou from the bad wilt nothing learn but ill, the wolf will ne'er the furrier's office fill. Maxim. Divulge not the secret faults of men, for at the same time that thou disgracest them, thou wilt destroy thy own credit. Maxim. He that has acquired learning, and not practised what he has learned, is like a man who ploughs, but sows no seed. Maxim. Worship cannot be performed by the body without the mind, and a shell without a kernel will not do for merchandise. Maxim. Not every one who is ready at wrangling is correct in his dealings. Couplet. Forms are now beneath the mantle wear the outward signs of grace, but if thou shouldst them unwimple, thou wouldst find a grandam's face. Maxim. Not every one whose outward form is graceful possesses the graces of the mind, for action depends on the heart, not on the exterior. Stanza. From a man's qualities a day's enough to make us of his learning's limit sure. Plume not thyself as though the hidden stuff thou of his heart hast reached, nor be secure, for not e'en long revolving years can tell the foul things which in man unnoticed dwell. Maxim. A weak man, who has the foolhardiness to contend with a strong one, assists his adversary in destroying himself. Stanza. He who is nursed in soft repose cannot with warriors to the battle go, vain with his weakly arm to close and struggle with an iron-wristed foe. Maxim. Whoso will not listen to advice aims at hearing himself reproached. Couplet. He who will not to friends' advice attend must not complain when they him reprehend. Maxim. Persons devoid of virtue cannot endure the sight of the virtuous, just as market curs, when they see dogs of the chase, bark at them, but dare not approach them. Maxim. When a base fellow cannot vie with another in merit, he will attack him with malicious slander. Couplet. Weak envy absent virtue slanders. Why? Since it is dumb, perforce, when it is by. Maxim. Wise men eat late. Devout men but half satisfy their appetites, and hermits take only enough to support life. The young eat till the dishes are removed, and the old till they sweat, but the calendars stuff till they have no room in their stomachs to breathe, and not a morsel is left on the table for any one. Couplet. The glutton for 2 nights no sleep can get, the first from surfeit, the next from regret. Maxim. Whoso slays not his enemy when he is in his power is his own enemy. Couplet. When a stone is in the hand, on a stone the serpent's pate, he is not a man of sense who to strike should hesitate. There are, however, persons who think the opposite of this advisable, and have said, it is better to pause in the execution of prisoners, inasmuch as the option of slaying or pardoning them is retained, whereas, if a prisoner be put to death without deliberation, it is probable that the best course will be let slip, since the step is irremediable. Couplets. 'Tis very easy one alive to slay, not so to give back life thou tak'st away. Reason demands that archers patience show, for shafts once shot return not to the bow. Maxim. The sage who engages in controversy with ignorant people must not expect to be treated with honour, and if a fool should overpower a philosopher by his loquacity, it is not to be wondered at, for a common stone will break a jewel. Couplet. What marvel is it if his spirits droop? A nightingale, and with him crows to coop. Couplets. What if a vagabond on merit rail? Let not the spirits of the worthy fail. A common stone may break a golden cup. Its value goes not down, the stone's not up. Maxim. It is not right to estrange in a moment a friend whom it takes a lifetime to secure. Triplet. 'Tis years before the pebble can put on the ruby's nature. Wilt thou on a stone in one short moment mar what time has done? Maxim. Purpose without power is mere weakness and deception, and power without purpose is fatuity and insanity. Couplet. Have judgment, counsel, sense, and then bear rule. Wealth, empire, are self-murder to the fool. The liberal man who enjoys and bestows is better than the devotee who fasts and lays by. Whoso abandons lust in order to gain acceptance with the world has fallen from venial desires into those which are unpardonable. Couplet. Hermits who are not so through piety darken a glass and then attempt to see. Couplet. Little to little added much will grow. The barn store, grain by grain, is gathered so. Many littles make a mickle, many drops a flood. Maxim. It is not right for a learned man to pass over leniently the foolish impertinences of the vulgar, for this is detrimental to both parties. The awe which the former ought to inspire is diminished, and the folly of the latter augmented. Couplet. Art thou with fools too courteous and too free, their pride and folly will augmented be. Maxim. People forget the name of him whose bread they have not tasted during his lifetime. Joseph the Just, peace be on him, during the famine in Egypt, would not eat so as to satisfy his appetite, that he might not forget the hungry. It is the poor widow that relishes the grapes, not the owner of the vineyard. Couplets. He who in pleasure and abundance lives, what knows he of the pang that hunger gives? He can affliction best appreciate, who has himself experienced the same state. Stanza. O thou, who rid'st a metal courser, see how toils mid mire the poor thorn-loaded ass. From poor men's houses let no fire for thee be brought. The wreaths which from their chimney pass are sighs wrung from their hearts by destiny. Maxim. Two things are impossible: to obtain more food than what Providence destines for us, and to die before the time known to God. Stanza. Fate is not altered by 1,000 sighs. Complain or render thanks, arrive it will. The angel at whose bidding winds arise cares little for the widow's lamp, if still it burns, or by the storm extinguished dies. Maxim. The envious man begrudgeth God's blessings, and is the foe of the innocent. Stanza. A wretched crack-brained fellow once I saw, who slandered one of lofty dignity. I said, Good sir, I grant thee that a flaw may in thy fortunes be observed, but why impute it to the man who lives more happily? Second stanza. Oh, on the envious man invoke no curse, for of himself, poor wretch, accursed is he. On him no hatred can inflict aught worse than his self-fed, self-torturing enmity. Maxim. A student without the inclination to learn is a lover without money, and a pilgrim without spirituality is a bird without wings, and a devotee without learning is a house without a door. End of Gulistan, or Rose Garden. End of section 4.